Yo. Fuck, man. Jesus. It's like a circus attraction. Anyway, let me go into your comment on democracy and aristocracy. Well, yeah, obviously value judgments are subjective. You were also subjective. Did you know that? Which means that your value judgments are what you are objectively. For example, if you would change your value judgment about oxygen and, for example, methane, so would you still be the same person? Would you still exist? No, your value judgments, be they most of all the subconscious, the unconscious, the automatic, instinctive value judgments, which determine whether or not something is of value to you, which determine whether or not you're going to approach it and assimilate it. These determine what you are determined by what you are. But mainly, that's the same thing. They are what you are. That's value. Value ontology doesn't concern so much conscious values, because the nature of those is that they can usually be changed, or values of the consciousness, but rather values of the whole system. Now, I don't know if you've ever been driven to violence by someone who was challenging your values. But this is a moment where you notice. This is a sort of moment where you notice that values is what you are made of. That is not your morals or your heart or your love or whatever. It's simply that which you cannot abide being violated. And by such when we notice what we are when what we are is being threatened. So aristocracy, the value of the best, the rule of the best. Okay, who's the best? This has been a great problem since I formulated value ontology. I had, obviously, there was the implicit assignment of going through with Nietzsche's revaluation of values and establishing some form of definitive value set. But on the other hand, it was perfectly clear that this would always be, in a sense, arbitrary, yet not less necessary. That is the problem. The way philosophy crosses into politics, into action, is always through some arbitrary interpretations, which is very ugly, and which is why philosophy has never really been a success politically, but always managed to get itself raped and violated before it got itself integrated. Some guy flying a drone over there. And so this is what I've been trying to avoid using value ontology. It's easier to to understand how perfectly hopeless it is to make an objective standard. But that doesn't mean let's separate the term objective from life-giving. That's what Nietzsche would do. We're not looking for a objective truth, but for a life-affirming truth in politics. Philosophy, okay, that might be different. In philosophy, we might say we want the perfect, absolute truth in as far as this is humanly possible. And I think, in all modesty, I think this point has been reached with value ontology. This gives us absolute certainty about the nature of uncertainty and about the nature of unexactness, which is the nature of the universe, or which is the sort of the ground fabric the universe. Anyway, what we quickly arrived at, using also Savelius, or with Savelius's help, was that we have no choice but to posit ourselves as the highest, as the best. It's just the only thing that makes sense. If you are going to establish an aristocracy, apparently there's this will to establish such a thing. I mean, the will must be grounded in something that can be absolutely affirmed. Now the whole question becomes how to affirm ourselves absolutely as philosophers in such a radical and ridiculous way as to call ourselves a political aristocracy, let alone actually establishing political power in this, under this name. But this is where we're sort of at now, and this is also the nature of the soul, the background of this whole part farcical, part ridiculous operation of going out into the world and saying all these things. I had this phrase I sent to you, like, all great things must first wear ridiculous masks in order that they don't become, in order that history doesn't make clowns out of them. Look at, for example, the difference between Churchill and Hitler. Hitler was extremely serious and turned out to be, become the icon of whatever could be wrong with man. Whereas Churchill was nobody took him seriously until the moment that everybody had given up hope in England except him. And this is basically, I identify with this position. I was never very much into the whole scene of the administration, even though I come sort of from a sort of class of people that is sort of used to that sphere. I always thought it was perfectly empty, but now that everything is falling away in these terms, and nobody in this class has any sense of himself or hope or ambition anymore, now that political nihilism is absolutely victorious, what's left? Us. It's not a joke.